And more reaction to the president's address includes a joint statement from all 24 of the nation's Democratic governors who wrote in part, quote, "It is deeply alarming that President Trump continues to try to undermine free and fair elections. No amount of lies and conspiracy theories can change the fact that our country's elections have repeatedly been proven to be safe and secure. These attacks are intended to intimidate and silence voters. Democratic governors stand ready to fight back against the Trump administration and stop any and all unlawful attacks on every American's constitutional right to vote."
And one of those Democratic governors, Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, joins us now. Governor, thanks so much for being with us. You know, these elections are going to be determined. The shape of Congress for the next 2 years will be determined by specific swing district races. In your state, it'll be the 1st District of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania 7, Pennsylvania 8, Pennsylvania 10. And so as you look toward the elections and see that, like, for instance, these 4 races are obviously going to play a key role in where Congress goes, what do you do to ensure that every voter that wants to vote can vote in person or by mail? And what do you do when you start hearing the president talking about trying to get in the way of that democratic process?
Well, good morning. It's good to be back on with you. Let me just say, I thought it was an unfortunate day for America to have really an unhinged president in the White House spewing a whole bunch of conspiracy theories that are just simply not connected to reality. I mean, I'll remind you and remind your viewers that every single time Donald Trump and his enablers have been forced to produce evidence to back up his ridiculous claims, he's failed. You'll remember I was the attorney general here in Pennsylvania back in 2020. He and his enablers took me to court 43 different times to try and throw out votes in Pennsylvania, undermine the will of the people. Every single time they went to court, they lost. They went 0-43. I went 43-0. And it was largely because they could never produce the evidence to back up the president's BS. When I think about the future, when I think about these midterms, to the heart of the first part of your question, Joe, we are prepared here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to once again have a free and fair, safe and secure election. We are prepared through the great leadership of my Secretary of State, Al Schmidt, who I would note is a Republican. I'm a Democrat, because we believe here in Pennsylvania, the administration of elections is nonpartisan. It has to be above politics, and it has been. We are prepared here in the courts, and we are prepared here in the community to protect people's right to vote. I thought the Rev made a good point earlier in the show that really the whole purpose of this speech seems to be to suppress the vote, particularly in certain minority communities. We will not let that happen. People will have access to the ballot box, whether they choose to vote by mail or they choose to vote in person.
Yeah. I mean, aside from things that were said that were completely untrue and conspiracy theories, I mean, you had even Fox News reading disclaimers in response to the speech. I'm curious. It feels like another case of the president saying the quiet part out loud about his intention. What other concerns does this address to the nation say to Americans about what perhaps this administration may have planned for the midterms?
Well, to your point about saying the quiet part out loud, I wish he would have said the quiet part to Xi when he was in China just a couple months ago. I mean, if the president was really actually concerned about Chinese attempts to meddle in our elections, he would have raised it when he was with Xi. Instead, he went overseas and came home with absolutely nothing. He sort of cowered in the presence of Xi. If he was actually really concerned about election integrity, he wouldn't have defunded the agency that actually protects states from attempts for foreign interference. It was all nonsense, and it was all just simply designed to try and suppress the vote, to try and undermine people's confidence. I think instead what you're going to see is an American public that sees right through all this nonsense. And my hope is that these midterms will be a referendum on Donald Trump's chaos, cruelty, and corruption. Yes, in swing states like mine, but also all across the United States. For people to show up in record numbers, to speak out against the president's lawlessness and his conspiracy theories, and make very, very clear that this is not who we are as Americans, and this is not something that we will accept as normal here in this country. And that requires everyone to show up and vote.
Governor Shapiro, good morning. Let's get into one of the claims I'm sure you saw this week that the Department of Homeland Security suggested that yours was one of 4 states, along with Nevada, California, and New Jersey, that had, in their estimation, too many non-citizens on its voters roll. They did not say that those people actually voted, but they suggested that there were more people who are not citizens of this country on their voter rolls. Now, that is something that we will hear echoed on different networks and on podcasts, and I'll talk to people who say, did you hear Pennsylvania has a bunch of illegal immigrants voting? Can you respond to that claim?
Well, first off, we take every single claim of someone doing something illegal related to our elections very, very seriously. And should we ever find evidence of that, we immediately refer it to prosecutors. I would actually note for the record that just yesterday, someone was sentenced here in Pennsylvania to 6 months house arrest for voting twice for Donald Trump in the past election. We take this stuff very seriously. My Secretary of State, Al Schmidt, known earlier in his career as someone who has stood up against the idea of non-citizens voting. He found an issue with our registration system. This goes back years and years and years, and worked to fix it. We take the sanctity of our elections very seriously. It is against the law for non-citizens to vote. What I would say to the administration is, if you have any real evidence of this, provide it to us. We want to work to make sure that there's integrity always in our system, as we believe that there is, because we've had free and fair, safe and secure elections repeatedly, sometimes where Donald Trump has lost, sometimes where he has won. And so I would just say, if you got information, share it with us, and let's work together to address it. But I think at the end of the day, what they really have is a bunch of conspiracy theories, and they're just trying to suck up to their boss and please him at a time where he is more and more unhinged and disconnected from reality.
It seems time and time again that when we read stories about actual corruption and voting, a lot of times it comes from Republicans who voted for Donald Trump. It'll be curious to see what happens with Ken Paxton, who the Texas Tribune reported may have voted illegally in 4 or 5 times in the wrong locales. I wanted to ask you, Governor,
and
you we've been talking. Go ahead.
I just want to remind you, Joe, Ken Paxton engaged in a campaign of sedition back in the 2020 election. When he filed as Attorney General of Texas, he filed with the courts to throw out the votes of the people of Pennsylvania. I fought Ken Paxton. I won, and we protected the votes here in Pennsylvania, and I sure as hell hope the people of Texas stand up and vote against him in this election and vote for James Tallarico. Ken Paxton has no respect for the rule of law and certainly no respect for the voters here in Pennsylvania. That's why he lost repeatedly.
Yeah. Tried to throw out the votes. Now, it's interesting. You talked about, we usually talk about 4 or 5 C's that are going to determine the election. You talked about chaos, cruelty, and corruption. At the top of our C list is costs, along with chaos, cruelty, and corruption. If you could just talk about costs right now in the state of Pennsylvania, because we hear it everywhere we go. People are just absolutely hammered by health care costs. Obviously, gas prices, grocery prices. Health care, though, it keeps coming back down. This is something Republicans cut Medicaid, in the big, horrific bill. And it's something that we kind of forgot because so many things have happened, but working Pennsylvanians, working Americans haven't forgotten it. They live with it every day. Talk about costs and why that is the top issue for voters in Pennsylvania and across America.
Yeah, there's no question. And you can draw a direct line between rising costs and Donald Trump's policies. Let me give you just 3 examples. There's probably hundreds I can give you. Let's start with health care. You mentioned that 510,000 Pennsylvanians are on their way to losing access to health care because Donald Trump and his enablers believe that giving a tax cut to the people at the very top and paying for it on the backs of hardworking Pennsylvanians' healthcare was the answer. They were wrong about that. But now 510,000 Pennsylvanians are losing access through the Affordable Care Act and through Medicaid. I would add that on top of that, 140,000 are losing food assistance. You want to talk about the height of cruelty, ripping food away from people who are hungry. We've also seen the tariffs absolutely decimate our farmers here in Pennsylvania, shut down market share, make it harder for them to gain access to sell their crops, to sell their products. And by the way, Donald Trump knows this. That's why he came up with a bogus plan on how to give them a handout. And then let's just talk about what the average Pennsylvanian is seeing when they go to the grocery store, rising prices, largely due to the tariff policies. And then when they go to the gas station and they try and fill up, gas costs more at the pump because of the president's war of choice in Iran that was wrong to get into, and clearly he has no idea now how to get out of. So whether it's at the pump, the grocery store, your health care, our farmers, everybody's getting screwed by Donald Trump's higher costs. Here in Pennsylvania, I would note, I've cut taxes 10 different times to put money back in people's pockets. Yet every time I put a buck back in somebody's pocket, Donald Trump's policies rips $2 out the other one. It's absolutely unfortunate, and there will be a referendum on Donald Trump's chaos, cruelty, corruption, and as you said, Joe, higher costs in these midterms. And I'm hoping people show up in record numbers to stand up against that.
Not to mention housing. Democratic Governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor.